Have you ever experienced that deep silence after a relationship seems to fall apart? There's a tension in the air that makes it seem like she isn't calling or texting, but you still get the feeling that she isn't entirely gone. This isn't just a simple retreat or indifference. It's planned. She's watching from the sidelines, waiting for you to make the first move to reveal a weakness in your armor. But what if you realize that this silence is actually a subtle battleground of wills? In today's video, we're dissecting this silent test of emotional strength and teaching you how to handle it with cool, collected control. First of all, your response is genuine. This isn't about playing games. It's about learning how to stand your ground, like a man who knows his value and won't give up just because someone is waiting for him. Her true goal is your response. It's not just about what happened between you. It's also about how you're acting, going ahead, breaking up, and getting farther apart. The beginning of her seeming apathy. These factors only set the scene. How you react to these provocations is what really grabs her interest. She's watching you carefully to see if you'll falter, if you'll pursue her desperately, or if you'll break under the emotional strain she's purposefully creating. Maybe she posts a mysterious update online. Maybe she's been spotted with someone else. Or maybe she acts as if your previous relationship wasn't that important. But don't be fooled. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond." These actions are not random. They are meticulously planned, though not always a conscious strategy. They are driven by emotion. She is testing the waters to see if he will crumble first or affirm my influence over him by reacting. This is your moment to turn the tables by not responding at all, choosing composure over desperation, choosing self-control over knee-jerk reactions, and using poised restraint. Your genuine power is in your answer. It isn't about trying to prove your worth or reflecting her emotional condition, but rather about being composed in the face of chaos. This man stands in a room full of noise, distractions, and chaos, but he is completely calm. That's the vibe, and that's what breaks her expectations because, unlike most men who might give up trying to make amends, clear up misunderstandings, or win back her affection, a man who is truly confident in who he is doesn't feel the need to act in such ways. He knows that true strength comes from acting less, but with greater purpose. So when she tries to elicit a response, meet her with nothing but calm and allow her to experience the profound silence of an unshakable man who moves only when he determines it's right. This is how you stop playing by her rules and start dominating your own game. Number 2, don't use your anxiety to boost her ego. You may think you're being subtle or even strategic, but to her, it's obvious evidence that she still controls your emotions, that your peace of mind depends on her recognition, that every simple check-in message, carefully chosen story you post to raise suspicions, and every subtle attempt to get her attention all only serve to feed the very thing that keeps her distant, her ego. Once she realizes this, she becomes complacent. Her intrigue wanes in her perspective, and she has already secured victory. But here's the important realization you must understand. She can tell if your outreach is just a way to soothe your own discomfort, since she sees the fear concealed in every communication. A man who has truly mastered his self-control does not use silence to elicit a response or tricks to make her miss him. Instead, he turns that silence inward and uses it to sharpen his thoughts, refocus his focus, engage in introspection, and elevate his being like a stoic embracing solitude. He understands that discomfort is a crucible for developing self-discipline. According to a quote by Seneca, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. This is particularly true when your anxieties control your behavior. You create situations that make you want to act rashly to allay your imagined fears when, in reality, the best course of action is to keep your cool and stay grounded. For this reason, don't give her the satisfaction of knowing that you are still caught up in her emotional maze. Instead, use her silence as a springboard for personal development. I'd love to hear what part of this message resonated with you the most. Leave a comment below, or just type "calm" to lock in this mindset. If this resonated with you, please like the video, because it helps more men hear what they need to hear. When your inner peace stops being dependent on her responses, that's when she starts to reevaluate her assumptions in moving forward with your growth and letting go of the need for her validation. This transformation not only reclaims your power, but also reshapes the dynamics between you, as your newfound independence becomes the real game-changer, challenging her perceptions and possibly reigniting all her interest in the man who has emerged stronger and more centered than ever. The dynamic begins to genuinely change in the following section. Third, emotional stillness. When you stop reacting, reaching out, or participating in the emotional tug-of-war, you become an enigma, and it is this very mystery that draws people closer, making them want to understand more in a world where everyone is busy proving themselves through posts, texts, explanations, and displays. Emotional stillness is loud, and loud silence has a profound power that compels others to listen. While others vie for attention, your calm detachedness defies convention. When you deviate from these expectations, when your aura remains poised and unaffected, that silence intensifies, and she finds herself scrolling through her phone, waiting for a message that never arrives, or revisiting old conversations to relive a sense of closeness. Your calm silence cuts through the noise, and it unsettles her not because of any overt action on your part, but precisely because you choose to remain still. She expects noise. She expects overt signs of affection, and she assumes you'll show that you're still impacted and that you care deeply. Her thoughts are filled with resonance from the space you maintain. The ability to feel strong emotions but deliberately choose not to let them control you is embodied by emotional stillness, which is not a sign of weakness but rather of disciplined strength. It is the stoic part of you saying, "I may sense the tempest, but I refuse to be swayed by its force." If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment, as Marcus Aurelius sagely observed. This captures the core of emotional quiet. As she continues to perform, you remain perceptive, yet detached, watchful, yet unresponsive, peaceful, not indifferent. This stark contrast not only makes you memorable but also defines you as distinct in an era dominated by instant gratification and the relentless pursuit of attention. Selecting detachment is a form of rebellion, and mastering emotional stillness becomes the most resounding declaration you can make. Number 4. You deny her the satisfaction of seeing your turmoil and refuse to expose your vulnerabilities simply because the silence grows uncomfortable. To be clear, if she truly didn't care, She wouldn't be watching your stories at 3 in the morning, checking to see when you're online, or going through old messages that she once claimed were permanently erased. She isn't over you. She's testing whether you are. The distance she's keeping is about curiosity and a calculated silence, not about healing or moving on. She is testing the waters to see how deeply you are still enmeshed in her emotional web, not because she is uninterested, but rather out of curiosity that keeps her eyes on you while she guards her heart. Her silence is more than just a lack of communication. Here's the lovely paradox that flips the whole game. When you truly detach and turn your attention from her to your own inner growth, everything changes. It's bait, a subtle yet profound test to determine whether you're still circling around her universe, even from a distance. She's trying to see if you're still emotionally available, and if you're still subtly hers in some unspoken way. You stop playing her silent games, and you stop thinking about her whereabouts or her friends. She can sense that you are changing on the inside, even if you don't say anything or post anything on social media. The difference in your energy is obvious. A man who is fully matured doesn't need to show off his independence. He exemplifies it. He doesn't use quietness as a ploy. Rather, he becomes the epitome of silence and is contentedly quiet. This man begins to linger in her thoughts, not because he is trying to make her feel his absence, but because he genuinely doesn't feel the lack of anything. This exemplifies what Stoicism teaches about the emotional battlefield, choosing self-mastery over emotional turmoil. As Seneca eloquently put it, he is most powerful who has power over himself, while she's scanning for signs that she still holds significance in your life. You're diligently building a new world, a world where her presence or absence no longer defines your center. And therein lies the twist that truly affects her. It isn't your anger, not your pursuit of revenge, but rather your peace that unnerves her. Your calm refusal to chase after her, to explain yourself, or to seek closure, reveals a new level of maturity and completeness. When a man reaches a state of wholeness without her, that's when she starts to wonder what she truly lost. Not just a partner, but a presence that was fully content and self-sufficient. Something rare and compelling that once gone leaves a notable absence in its wake. Before we move on, pause and reflect. If it resonates with you, post a comment with your views or just type. Your silence isn't meaningless. It's strong in a world when noise is everywhere. Your stillness becomes impossible to ignore. It's about control, purpose, and inner strength. If this message is hitting home, let's keep going. Number 5 will make your silence even louder. Remember to like the video, and remember that silence is strength. Being patient is not a sign of weakness. Being patient is not weak. It is a calculated move. She is strategically betting on you to falter and unintentionally express your sentiments by breaking first to make that check-in call. The typical reaction she observes is that most men crumble under the intense silence, giving in to anxiety and reaching out too soon or trying to re-establish contact before the tension has served its purpose. However, you've developed the patience skill and understand that not all movement denotes progress, and that real strength frequently resides in knowing when to remain motionless. Being precise is more important than being passive when it comes to patience. A guy who rushes is motivated by his emotions, but a man who waits, takes deep breaths, watches silently, and believes in the natural order of things is strong in the most admirable sense. Instead of reacting just to ease suffering, he holds firm, watches, and plans. When you resist the urge to act rashly, your stillness isn't about hesitation. Rather, it's about strategic planning. While she is constantly checking her phone for a sign, perhaps wondering why he hasn't contacted you, you maintain your composure. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Time is a sort of river of passing events, and strong is he who waits without being swept away." Your quiet originates from a place unaffected by outside upheaval, rather than being a means of retribution or manipulation. Your patience is firmly rooted in self-respect. You're not just waiting on her. You're watching and letting her reveal who she really is through the silence, and this confuses her. Nothing is more confusing to someone than meeting a man who doesn't act as expected. She's used to men who give in easily, who look for closure, who beg for another chance. But you're wiser. You're not desperate to prove anything. You keep your own pace. Finally, when you master this, she starts to feel the impact of every moment you do not return. This growing realization that you are not trapped in her expected narrative, but are instead crafting your own adds a profound weight to the silence, shifting the dynamics in ways that words alone could never accomplish. Patience is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it is a manifestation of power under duress. It's about trusting in your own stance and realizing that sometimes timing can achieve what words cannot. Don't let her define it. The moment you start defending your silence, defending your actions, or trying to prove that you've changed, you give up control of the situation, and more often than not, that narrative does not favor the man who seems to be pursuing you. A man who truly holds power doesn't feel the need to explain his actions. Instead, he simply embodies his principles and doesn't try to be understood. Instead, he lets his constant presence speak volumes. True power is demonstrated not through verbosity or loud declarations, but rather through the calm assurance of saying little and meaning more by maintaining, "Don't let her define the frame. Take control of it." You put her in a state of curiosity where she starts to ask, "Why isn't he pursuing me? Why doesn't he react? What is he thinking?" By maintaining your position and fighting the impulse to instantly correct, clarify, or regain your position. This is what it means to control the frame. You want her to be asking questions and thinking things through in her head, rather than setting the parameters of the conversation. You refuse to give in to her erratic moods. As Epictetus sagely observed, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. You don't mimic her energy. Rather, you set the tone like a Stoic in the midst of chaos, remaining firmly grounded in your genuine self and unaffected by the person she briefly wishes you to be. This idea is equally valid for preserving emotional restraint. When you let her upset your inner balance, she takes control of the story, fills in the blanks, and interprets your silence to project her own meanings onto it. The suspense you create by not having to be understood is incredibly alluring. When a man is confident in who he is, he doesn't let other people define him. Creates his own legacy. Take a moment to consider what your silence actually says about you. Is it frustration disguised, or the composed strength of a man who knows his worth? He demonstrated this, not with verbose explanations or fervent pleas, but through the eloquence of his actions, the patience of his timing, and his unwavering refusal to be swayed by anything less than his own deliberate purpose. This is the ideal time to consider not only her actions, but also your own development and the distinction between demanding respect and seeking approval. Take a moment to process this, and if any of it resonates with your current circumstance, leave a comment or simply say this. Number 7, scarcity sharpens desire. Let's go on to the next stage of this trip, where your silence starts to reverberate louder than any words could. Patience is my power. Desire is heightened by scarcity. Even while this might have looked like the best course of action for you at the time, it progressively undermined the mystery as she remembers the times when you were constantly available, fast to answer, and always made touch. Now, though, you've changed and entered a world she hadn't expected, one marked by intentional silence and distance. You're no longer just a message away, and this new scarcity isn't just a gap. It serves as a mirror, forcing her to consider what she had before and what now seems out of her reach. This is what the power of scarcity is all about. It turns what was previously disregarded into something that is seen as rare in relationship dynamics. Rarity is equivalent to value. Many men respond to a woman's sense of distance by lavishing her with attention in the mistaken belief that this will close the distance and restore the connection. But a wise and disciplined man chooses a different path. He gracefully withdraws, not out of animosity, but with dignity, making his presence something that must be won rather than given away carelessly like worthless coins. This tactic isn't about playing games. It's about reasserting your value when you stop dividing your attention carelessly. It forces her to realize what she might be losing, which increases her desire, changes the way she remembers you, and sharpens her appreciation. Suddenly, she's not just thinking back on the man who was always there. She's fascinated by the man who isn't Marcus Aurelius. He led quietly, deeply, and purposefully. He didn't demand attention, but his presence had a profound impact. This is the path you are currently on. You don't need to make noise to be missed, nor do you need to be visible online to have an impact. Let her feel the weight of this distance so she can face the quiet. When your absence is based on true personal development and sincerity, it becomes the most powerful manifestation of your presence. Allow her to become more attracted to you, not by your overt actions, but just by realizing that not everyone has the same access to the man you are becoming. Number 8. Don't explain why you're silent. She might be gently probing to see how you'll respond with a random comment on your photo. A mysterious narrative that seems to be customized just for you, or an innocent-seeming message that has a hint of inquiry. These aren't just innocuous acts. They're breadcrumbs. She is using calculated cues to determine whether you will bite in an effort to stir things up just enough to get you to react and pull you back into her orbit. But a disciplined man does not fall for the ploy and fights the impulse to interrupt, to justify his silence or provide assurances about his whereabouts. It's well known that certainty is the natural predator of curiosity. So when you begin to explain, you break the spell of mystery you've created and give her the certainty she seeks. Instead, let her wonder, let the silence grow and reverberate in her mind, and let her imagination work through what-if scenarios. For example, what if he has moved on? What if he no longer cares? Or what if he has changed into the version of himself that I only briefly saw before? This type of uncertainty and unsolved mystery lingers far longer and more profoundly than any simple explanation you might provide. A man grounded in emotional discipline, understands that his silence is not a void needing to be filled, nor is it an apology waiting to be uttered. It is not something that needs justifying. It is a boundary, a statement of self-respect. He isn't obligated to provide a running commentary on his healing process, his personal growth, or how he chooses to prioritize his life. His only debt is to himself to maintain his peace, as the Stoics teach. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Embrace the possibility of being misunderstood. Let them question your motives and your actions, providing explanations to someone who only values your presence. When you are actively pursuing them doesn't bring clarity. It signifies surrender. So when she purrs over your recent quietude, let her sit with that uncertainty. Do not ease her discomfort by filling in the gaps. Your continued silence, your chosen stillness should be the answer. She can't ignore it, should haunt her thoughts and challenge her expectations, because the man who doesn't feel compelled to explain his silence, who doesn't dilute his presence with needless justifications, often becomes the one she finds most unforgettable. This mysterious presence. Her perspective and possibly her desires are altered by your unwavering composure in the midst of what was once a lively exchange. Ultimately, your quiet is a potent manifestation of self-mastery and intrinsic worth. Resonating more loudly than any 9 words could rebuild your planet. The truth is that if she chooses to walk away and create that distance, it is up to you to turn that void into a catalyst, not for pursuit, but for profound personal transformation. This is the point where many people falter. They dwell in silence, but they are only pausing, not moving forward, and they obsess over her social media. Rebuilding your world without her silence isn't just about stepping back, but about stepping within. It's not a tactic meant to make her miss you. It's a sacred opportunity to rebuild your world, this time with you at its center. I wonder if she's listening and secretly hopes she'll initiate contact. But this isn't growth. Rather, it's a holding pattern that impedes genuine development. The man who genuinely rises utilizes his quiet as a launching pad. Now is your time to polish every aspect of your personality. Realign your spirit, strengthen your body, and clear your mind. Rediscover your goals. Invest in your interests, and let the silence act as a furnace where discipline is developed and distractions are burned. If she runs into you again, whether it's next month or next year, she shouldn't run into the same man she left. She should be presented with a version of you that she could never have imagined. A man who feels complete without her approval, who radiates calm, focus, and an unmistakable presence without the need for outside approval. If she never comes back, that's okay, because this journey isn't about winning her back. Rather, it's about becoming the man who chooses himself every day purposefully and powerfully. Rebuild your life, one brick at a time, one goal at a time. And when she looks at you again, she won't just see a man who has moved on. Rather, she will see a man who has elevated himself, not because of her absence, but for himself. This isn't just moving on, it's moving up, embracing your potential, and becoming the architect of your own destiny. Number 10. Here's the last thing she does when you don't break it. She does anticipate your collapse when you don't shatter. She anticipated receiving 2 texts, the request for one more opportunity to speak, the disintegration that usually ensues after the emptiness she left, and her preparation for the emotional validation that many men unintentionally give when they feel abandoned or confused. But you didn't live up to those expectations. You took a different decision. You made the decision to be resilient and to embrace silence out of self-respect rather than malice. While she was getting ready for your breakdown, you were concentrating on strengthening yourself while she waited for signs of your desperation. You were mastering the art of serenity. Your objective wasn't to win her back, but rather to rediscover and reclaim your own essence. This quiet, composed indifference totally upended the expected dynamic. This was the unexpected turn of events that she couldn't control. When a man resists emotional pressure and refrains from making hasty explanations or pleas for closure, he becomes a mystery in a society where emotional impulsivity is frequently the norm. The ability to maintain emotional discipline becomes not only seductive, but also profoundly impactful in this kind of emotional standoff. The person who gives in first loses his grounding, but the one who stays strong becomes memorable, not because of the words he said, but rather because of the words he didn't need to utter. His cool, unflinching demeanor serves as a mirror reflecting back to her, not the man who chased her, but the man who never needed to chase. You didn't play her games. You transcended them. So, hold on to this when you don't falter, when you maintain your composure, and stay centered. She is the one who starts to waver, not because you forced it, but because a display of strength like yours cannot be overlooked. After all, the one who stays calm and steadfast is the one who wins. And there it is, if you've been sitting in that silence. There's nothing braver than holding back when every impulse compels you to reach out. Final results, pondering the meaning of it all and why she's so still, but still observing, then realizing that this isn't merely a pause, but rather a test of silent emotional control, in which the male who comprehends this dynamic usually wins. The man who values silence not as a weapon, but as a sign of inner strength, redefines it rather than merely surviving it. What we've discussed here is about taking back your power, not about playing games. She may not say it aloud, but trust me, she feels it, and in that stillness, you become unforgettable. Understanding the deeper psychology of post-breakup silence and responding with intention rather than impulse is about changing from being reactive to becoming unshakable, from chasing to creating space, from hoping to building, because everything changes when you stop performing, when you stop explaining, and when you simply become calm, composed, and centered. Tell us what truth you needed to hear today in the comments section. Or if you want to keep it short, just type, "I choose composure over chaos." Finally, have a look at the suggested videos on your screen, which will delve even further into the attitude of power presence and emotional self-mastery. If this video gave you clarity, strength, or perspective, don't forget to like it, as it helps disseminate this message to those who need it too. Until the next time, remain grounded, stay focused, and keep in mind that your silence is your greatest strength, not a sign of weakness.